Have you ever questioned what you're doing and why you continue doing it? What's your real purpose? Uncover your superpowers through the purpose equation with Anna Hall, to move from surviving to thriving, in this episode of Pause for Purpose.
I'm going to share how I met Anna. Since I wear the title at My Future Purpose as the Chief Purpose Officer, I went to LinkedIn, which is a great place to hang around, as everybody knows. And, for many who are looking for a job, I guess it's great for jobs, but it's also great for making new connections. And so I did a search and I said, Chief Purpose Officer, and Anna Hall's name came up. And so we met on LinkedIn, had a little LinkedIn conversation, and then were able to share so many things that in our life that we have in common. And namely, the whole process of discovering purpose. Only Anna has taken it to a new level, or several levels. Right now, she is with Connected Living, doing some really exciting projects, which I will let her tell you about. And in that capacity, she wears the title of Chief Purpose Officer. She also developed the purpose equation. And she's got a great slide presentation, and she'll walk you through what is the purpose equation and how did she come up with this sort of Einstein theory of purpose.
Oh, you flatter me too much.
And so with that, Anna, it's all yours. And Joyce, be sure to make it speaker view for the recording.
Well, first of all, thank you, Vicki and Joyce, for having me here. I have loved our Wednesday My Future Purpose talks, and I'm honored to be on this Wednesday. So thank you so much for the opportunity. And for all of you who have joined us today, thank you. You've made my day, and I will try to give that back to you and make your day so that hopefully when you leave this discussion, you will see something in yourself that maybe you didn't recognize or celebrate before. I've spent my entire career in senior living because I had a chance encounter in high school with a man named Beanie, and he was living in the nursing home near where I grew up in Hanover, New Hampshire. And there was something about the connection that I had with him, going in to visit him a couple times a week. I would read him his mail and we would just spend time together. He was in his 90s at the time. And I realized that it made me feel really good to go and help him. And I think probably even better than the joy he got from our connection and our collaboration. So that opened my mind. And then in senior living, I've worked as an enrichment director for memory care, assisted living, independent living. And at Brookdale, I oversaw engagement in the CCRC division and for the healthcare centers. So that's where I got a lot of lessons in learning about the skilled healthcare environment. At Connected Living, I was one of the early hires 13 years ago when I was recruited from senior living, and no one thought that seniors would ever go online. But we all thought very differently, and luckily we were right. So I've had a lot of roles in that startup world, and it taught me that what I love is engagement and figuring out what is it that makes people tick. So at Connected Living, as the Chief Purpose Officer, my role there is to bridge culture and engagement with the technology. Technology is only as good as the people who use it and the content that goes into it. Some of the really fun things that we've been doing lately are introducing robotics to senior living. Now, we're not the first to do that, as Bern can tell you, but we have a really neat personal robot named Temi, who's about 3.5 feet tall, supports video chat, can support telehealth. So I've been working with our clients to use this robot to amplify engagement within communities. Families can now video chat with loved ones or a loved one who has COVID and is in isolation. The family can use the robot to go in and have a virtual visit. It sounds like, oh, you could just use an iPad for that, but it's just not the case. It's much better, it's much more personal, it's hands-free, it just feels more natural, even using a robot to make that kind of connection. Temi also is the only robot, I think, that's certified for Alexa. So we're having a lot of fun creating programming for voice technology around the robot and Alexa in general. And one project that we're working on right now with Excelsior is programming the robot to do fully autonomous video visits. So the robot is programmed to learn the floor plan of the community using AI and it's all of its different sensors and mapping. And it will go to a certain room at a certain time and activate a video call with a resident and their family. And then when the call is over, the robot will go back to home base and get ready for the next engagement. So I get a lot of joy out of helping people to be connected, which is, you know, obviously a big part of purpose. The other neat thing that we've done is integrated in video chat to our mobile application. So we have an app, it's a free download called Connected Living Community. And you can, there's really two parts to the app. One is the community connection, a way to get essential community information to navigate one's day, like menus and calendars and announcements. And then the other way is to connect with residents and friends and family members through the app. So we've built in a one-click video chat. So now instead of like closing that app and opening Zoom and downloading this and trying to figure out that, residents and their families or friends can just video chat with each other, one click, no downloads, right through the app. And then the last thing I want to mention is we've integrated Zoom into the app. And this is because we saw one of the silver linings of the pandemic is that virtual programming had to come into existence because we needed to keep residents in rooms for safety. Actually, I don't know if we needed to do that, but that's what happened. And so bringing the engagement and the enrichment to the room became really important because loneliness is a problem and it's not good for health or well-being. So through the app now, residents can attend live stream yoga classes and attend guest lectures and really augment the way that they're interacting with each other and the community right from the comfort of their room. Or if they're traveling, you know, still join in on that game that they didn't want to miss and they could be 100 miles away and still use Zoom. So we don't think that video chat or Zoom is going anywhere. I think we're all a little tired out from Zoom if we're on it all day, but the opportunity that it brings to communities to make connections both within and outside of the community. Colby will talk more about that, engaging prospects in your wait list, is really incredible and exciting. So how was that for a long-winded explanation, Vicki?
That was great. And that validates the value of my discovery of you. So with that, what I'd like you to do now is switch to your slides to explain. And by the way, that chalkboard behind that you see is Anna's formula for finding purpose. And that's why I call her Einstein. Oh my God. Okay, go ahead.
That's my diagram of purpose, and I keep it right there because it keeps me inspired and focused every day on what matters and why and my why. And that's what purpose is. So okay, so as I mentioned, I've worked in senior living. I've had the joy of working in senior living for my entire career, and I have more adopted grandparents than you could imagine. And you know, in the industry, there's a lot of talk about purpose and meaning. And I saw that some people seem to be living with this internal motivation to keep going, even when, you know, hard things in life happen, life transitions, moving into a community, changes in health status, changes in physical abilities. And those are hard things in life that are somewhat inevitable, but no less challenging. And so I wanted to figure out, like, what is purpose? Because it seemed like a lot of people were talking about it, but they meant different things. And then I thought, well, some people are talking about purpose and it sounds like they're talking about a hobby or an interest or a job or a role. And I thought, I wonder if that's what it is. Is purpose literally like a specific thing that we do? And so I went on a journey of exploration and deep research and learning and practicing to really get to the bottom of what purpose is. Right here on the screen, this is Al. He lives in California. He's in an assisted living community. And I went to learn from him and get some feedback on the purpose equation as I had it constructed at that point in time. And Al was very engaged in his community. He went to all the activities. He even led some of the activities. He was the community ambassador who would bring other residents to activities and introduce them to the community. On its surface, Al seemed to be the most engaged, happiest person in the community. When I sat down with Al one-on-one and talked about purpose, he said to me, "I feel confused. I don't know what to do now." And so what he was doing was just trying to do stuff and be busy, because that was meaningful to him. And I noticed in our conversations, and it brought this to my mind because I'd heard it throughout my career for the last 20 years. He would say, I used to play baseball. I used to coach. A lot of things he used to do. And I looked at him and I saw this incredible, vibrant man before me. And he didn't see that in himself. He only saw who he thinks that he used to be. And it broke my heart. And that "I used to" is the inspiration for the purpose equation. And so I ask all of us, and I ask senior living, and I even ask us, beyond residents, how do we really know who our residents are? How do we know who anyone is? And I think the answer to that is purpose. So the research showed me this at its surface. Purpose is defined loosely as a sense of meaning. A more comprehensive definition of it is below. I won't read it, it's on the screen. But it's basically defined as a reason to get out of bed in the morning, a reason to do, a reason to be, something that has personal meaning, that leads to productive engagement. So I thought, well, that could still be like a job or a role or a task or something that we do. So it wasn't quite satisfying my craving to understand what purpose is. And then the study of purpose led me to subjective well-being, which I love. Subjective well-being and purpose can both be measured. And subjective well-being is a measurement of how we judge our life to be, how we think about our life, and how we feel about our life. So purpose increases subjective well-being. Now, I had to do a lot of other research because the other thing that I wanted to figure out is, well, how does purpose interact with motivation? Why is it that some people are motivated to do things and others have less motivation to do things, or they're forcing themselves, or they're relying on willpower, or instead of saying I used to, they're saying I have to? So I studied motivation, self-determination theory, subjective well-being, different theories in aging, one of which was selective optimization compensation theory. And that theory says that as we get older and things change in our life, we don't lose interests. We are who we are, but in order to compensate for those changes in our life, we might narrow what we focus on. And I thought to myself, I wish that I could do some narrowing now in my life, because there's some stuff that I think is important that I'm starting to question if that's really important. And maybe I shouldn't wait until I'm older to figure that out. I also studied happiness, personality. So I had to study personality because depending on where your personality traits fall in the big 5 personality spectrum, you might be more or less likely to have natural feelings of happiness. And so I needed to create interventions based on personality and purpose to increase subjective well-being. And then, of course, I studied positive psychology. All of this I'm still studying and learning. And if any of you are experts in these areas, let's talk. Positive psychology can be a tricky one. And so I want to give a disclaimer right now. Positive psychology is a branch of psychology that looks for everything that's right with us. It's not looking for the problems. So when one is talking in the sphere of positive psychology, we're talking about happiness, joy, peace, loving oneself, self-acceptance. And all of those things can come with a very strong sense of purpose, especially if one goes through the purpose equation. But the disclaimer I want to give is this. For someone who is unhappy or having purpose blockers, who is stuck in shoulds, who has beliefs, structures that aren't serving well, depression, positive psychology and some of the language that goes along with that and with purpose can be really hard to hear. So I just want to be very clear on that, that the purpose equation uses coaching techniques, and it's a research-based framework to help people discover their purpose in 5 hours or less. But there are reasons that people might need more than the purpose equation to really help them access that well-being. So why is subjective well-being important? Because it's really good for your health. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's not some superfluous thing that says, yeah, if you have a sense of purpose, you'll be happier. You know, happiness, I'm not even sure how important happiness is in the scheme of things. I think purpose is much more important than that. But purpose fueling subjective well-being can help people maintain grip strength as they age, walking speed as they age. It can help people live up to 7 years longer, can help people recover faster from illness, and overall, purpose and subjective well-being build resilience. So I would say there should be a purpose prescription for everyone. So let's go back to Al now. So I used all of this research, my 20 years of experience and engagement, and then a lot of learning and trying again and failing and making mistakes that were amazing for learning to come up with the purpose equation. And the purpose equation here, you can see this is Al's purpose equation. It is literally a framework and a step-by-step process, but I never say process, experience, I should say, because it doesn't feel like a process. Discovering purpose is really fun. It's enlightening. It's a celebration. And we pinpoint core values, innate strengths, intrinsic motivations. Some of those are based on surveys. Some of those are based on mechanisms that I've developed through research and trial that literally can help a person say, this is who I am now. The purpose equation is not about looking backwards. Like I said, it's not therapy. It's about a journey of self-acceptance and the joy, and I mean the joy of looking and exploring inward to see your patterns and your strengths that you might not even notice because they're so innate, they're so inherent to each of us that we overlook, many of us overlook the very things that do fuel our purpose and that make us the unique, special beings that we are. After Al learned his purpose equation, he said, this is me now. And Al was 82 at the time. You hit the nail on the head. I feel better about me right now. And the best thing he said was, I feel relieved. What we discovered with Al's purpose equation is that kindness is his top strength, and his lens on the world is how can I be kind to every single person that I come in contact with? And he had a strong sense of duty. So he was over volunteering to help lead programs when in fact his purpose was random acts of kindness. He wanted to be kind, not on a schedule. That's just a little snippet, but that gives you some idea of what we were able to discover in Al's purpose equation. So the bottom line with the purpose equation is that, sometimes we all need to slow down and stop and change our perspective And by the glasses, I mean, these are special glasses that can help you look inward. What is the story that we tell ourselves, about what we're good at, why we're here? Do we focus on our weaknesses? Are we believing a story about ourselves that's true, or is it not even true? And what's the evidence for that? That's what the purpose equation helps us to do. It helps us to reframe our story and see the truth of who we are. And so here's a workshop I did where we literally put on chakra glasses after these residents took one of the surveys that's involved with the purpose equation. They literally put on these glasses and they changed the light. Some of them saw a green light, blue, red light, and they looked at themselves and they saw their strengths based on an evidence-based survey. And they looked and they said, oh, this is who I am. I'm looking at myself from a different angle. The purpose equation helps people to look at themselves from many different angles. And then we connect all of those perspectives together and serve up an equation on a platter that's a gateway. It's a starting point for living in purpose. And when one is living in purpose, that is when we can begin becoming. And becoming is an infinite experience of growth and excitement and joy and love. So Sophia was part of this group, and she had recently been diagnosed with Parkinson's. She was still in independent living, and she told me, Anna, I know that my future is assisted living and beyond because of this diagnosis. And so I want to know who I am inside, not based on my physical abilities, so that I will have the strength to continue living in purpose, even as, circumstances change. And she said, this is an eye opener. I was just living before this. I was in survival mode, but now I can identify who I am and how to focus my time and my energy. It gives me a roadmap or a blueprint to improve my life. And it makes sense to me. It's simple to understand. It's something I can look at every day and be excited. So what does this come down to? I'm going to give you a little bit more details, but I promise not to go too deep into them. At its core, the purpose equation is a journey of discovery that helps people to understand themselves. So many of us go through life based on how society is framed, our educational system, bosses who tell us to focus on your weaknesses instead of amplifying our strengths. And so a lot of things come up that can stop us from seeing the beautiful spirit that each of us are, that's right before us, but we overlook it or downplay it. So accept and understand yourself as you are from the lens of a purpose perspective. And when this happens, we create within the purpose equation a context for pursuing specific interests. Now, the specific interests don't come from the purpose equation, they come from purpose. When one can determine one's purpose, one can have an output of many different interests, but they're all in the context of that purpose. The other really neat thing I found about purpose is that once one understands one's own purpose, it becomes so much easier to see it in other people. And then you can start to talk to people in more of a transcendent way that goes beyond the moment or the situation or the task or the challenge. And you can talk to people and have better relationships because you're really talking on more of a soul level. The purpose equation then also helps people to pinpoint their own sense of meaning as they are created from the universe. So let me bring this back down to the level of really concrete examples so you can understand some of the outputs from the purpose equation. So Jim was another resident at a community. He was busy all day, but he was bored. Like, he barely had time to meet with me because he had such a heavy schedule in terms of activities and things that he was doing. And then we sat down and he said, I'm bored. And that's because what he was doing was not bringing meaning to his life. And so we were able to focus him on quality rather than quantity. And it really changed his outlook. Jane had a stroke and her life changed because she went from walking around her house being totally independent to using a wheelchair to move around. And she was depressed. And we discovered her purpose equation, and she realized that spirituality was her superpower. She knew that it's what kind of helped her through challenging times, but she had never accepted this superpower in the context of her personality and her joys in a way that she believed she could look inward and then share her spirituality and her purpose with others in a way that was meaningful for them. Dwayne was a 98-year-old resident at a community. He was known as the word game king, and it was fantastic. He was very proud of that. Everybody referred to him that way, and it was great. Learning his purpose equation, we discovered that playing word games was fun and it was a passion, but it was not his purpose. He gained meaning from recognizing people who he felt weren't recognized and sharing his natural superpower of gratitude with them. Laureen was also interesting. She was very much living in her purpose, but she hadn't ingested that inside of herself. So even though she was doing things that were meaningful for her, she felt guilty doing it, wondering if it was just silly. She hosted amazing dinner parties and made these beautiful tables and dinnerware and centerpieces. Her purpose was to create experiences that brought others joy. And so she felt validated. These are some quotes that I love. Michelle Obama said, "I've learned that as long as I hold fast to my beliefs and values and follow my own moral compass, then the only expectations I need to live up to are my own." And when one is truly living in purpose and fully accepted the beautiful parts about who you are, you're no longer feeling shoulds or feeling that you need to compare yourself to others. Like the thoughts, oh, she's better at that than me, don't come up. When you're living in purpose, you celebrate others' achievements and talents because you're okay with your own and you celebrate them. And that celebration and joy just emanates. And then to that point, Oprah Winfrey says, the more you praise and celebrate your life, the more there is in life to celebrate. And that is absolutely true. Purpose is a loving celebration that starts within. Now, I can't talk about purpose without mentioning Brené Brown. That would be a crime. You probably know her best from her talk about the power of vulnerability. If you haven't seen that TED Talk, please watch it. Essentially, she says that vulnerability is strength, and that's absolutely true. Now, there's a next level to that, and that is a sense of belonging. And this is in life. This goes for families. This goes for senior living communities. This goes for any community, friendships. Can't really feel that you belong anywhere or to anyone or with any group till you belong to yourself. And the way to belong to yourself is to discover and live in your purpose. I'm living in my purpose now. I was so nervous for this talk, but so excited for this talk because I think even if I say some wrong things and I make some mistakes, my intention is to share the joy of living in purpose. And I hope that that's what you all will come away from this with. The other thing that I want to leave you with from this talk is every single human being has purpose. It is not something that you have to go create. It's not something that you have to do. There's nothing that you have to do to get your purpose. Your purpose is you. And I'm going to say something now that's going to sound dramatic because I am a little bit dramatic, but also because it's true. Every single person who's discovered their purpose through the purpose equation has discovered this. I am who I wanted to be. I'm going to say it again, and I'm going to say it differently now. You are who you want to be. Where do you even get this concept of what's amazing? It actually comes from within. And when you can just fully embrace and accept your strengths and your joys and identify your intrinsic motivations and understand your personality, the context of how you operate in the world, there's really no other way to be except in a state of acceptance and joy. And I love this quote here from Helen Keller. She says, "The best and most beautiful things in the world cannot be seen or even touched, but they are felt with the heart." Here's what I've learned about purpose. I started out, just like with this presentation, with the academics and the research around purpose. And all of that is fantastic, and I use it in the purpose equation. But learning about purpose and helping people discover their purpose and living in purpose most of the time, what I found is that purpose is a way of being. It starts within. There's no amount of doing things that are going to help you discover your purpose. It's wonderful to do things. And part of, I think, most of the world sees purpose is in the outputs of living in purpose, right? An output of living in purpose is creating a purpose equation or being awesome at your job or having hobbies and interests that you love. But those aren't purpose. Purpose is you being in your natural, loving state that the universe created you in and acknowledging it. And what the purpose equation does is help you name it. Because the way the human brain works, we need to be able to name and identify things in order to really hold on to them. So purpose starts within and then it flows out. Thus, the diagram behind me. The key ingredient in any interesting superhero is not omnipotence, but vulnerability. This is really deep, but it's so true. There's always a kind of sadness underlying the personalities of the great superheroes. They've been given great knowledge and gifts, but they've also had some tough battles, right? So the purpose equation is we acknowledge that all of us have our ups and downs, and there are things that I call purpose blockers, as I mentioned earlier, that can get in the way of us either discovering our purpose, accepting our purpose, living in our purpose. And that's okay. It's part of life. All of our experiences and our ways of being that either bring us up or seem to pull us down can be part of that equation. It's what we do with those things and how we interact with ourselves and others that allow our purpose fuel to keep burning. So the goals of the purpose equation are first and foremost a journey of self-discovery and acceptance. And there's very specific evidence-based techniques that are used in the purpose equation to help a person discover and accept themselves. Then, as I said, it's important to name and activate these innate superpowers we all have. First of all, because naming them helps us to activate them and live in them, and then use our purpose as a lens to navigate through our life and our relationships and our career. And also because they might be so natural to us that we might overlook them. By the way, when we activate our superpowers and name them and use them on a daily basis, it does increase our happiness and subjective well-being. So when I think about senior living communities, I think, and I know that if we could help residents to discover their purpose and activate their purpose, which is not being busy and it's not attending activities, that we could really increase wellness in those communities and beyond. Another piece of the purpose equation that's really important is this integration of these various purpose perspectives into our new story about ourselves. Imagine if you could wake up in the morning and the story that you tell yourself about yourself starts with your why, your reason for being and doing. It answers that question. And then next, we need to contextualize our personality to amplify our superpowers, right? So we need to understand, am I an introvert or an extrovert? And if so, what are the specific traits related to that that filter my purpose? So personality in Big Five is a really important part of the purpose equation, and we introduce it at a very specific time. This is my vision for senior living. So the purpose equation is a 5-hour experience that's achieved through coaching. I also give purpose talks for organizations to help them get energized and to understand the nature of purpose, to see what it looks like and how it can evolve and help a company to be more cohesive and have everyone speaking the same language. I can also give purpose workshops that give people a taste of their purpose and help them to see it in others, which is great for teams. The vision for senior living is being, doing, and becoming. That will fit in any model in senior living where we have dimensions of wellness and signature programs that are all very important. The purpose equation can be like a stack or a layer on top of that. And so I'm proposing that we take another look at the resident intake or move-in process. Instead of, well, in addition to asking, what are your hobbies and what are your interests and what did you do for work? Let's find out really who this person is right now. And there's specific questions and ways of relating that we can do to achieve that. We should ask purpose-driven questions. We should find out about the basic personality traits because that's going to give a lot of context for how this person navigates their daily life. And then we should use a survey. I have a 7-question survey. I didn't make it. It's called the Flourishing Survey. It's amazing. There's a purpose survey. There's other very short surveys that we could use to actually measure baseline upon move-in or even prior about subjective well-being. And then as we look at the scores over time, we can create specific interventions, which I'm already working on to help to keep subjective well-being maintained or even elevated by moving into a senior living community. So my new marketing for senior living is this: move into our community and you will experience endless becoming, because that's really what life is all about, isn't it? Life is also really about how do we see things? What is our perspective? Even in the world of psychology, there's a whole new branch, positive psychology, to help us look at how we're wired and how we behave and what feelings are from a different perspective. I encourage people to look at themselves from these different lenses of purpose, and it can really change life. The last thing I want to say about the purpose equation before we dive into our conversation, and I can't wait for that, is to say that, we talk about how each of us are unique. It's absolutely true. Each of us have a unique purpose. We are all built with a stack of components that are fit together in a very unique way to make us who we are, and even that create the way we see the world. Your purpose literally determines how you intake experiences and how you digest experiences and relationships, and then what that output looks like is your purpose bathing the world in your unique purpose wavelength. I think of purpose as a light. So what's coming out of each person is a unique wavelength that impacts others in a beautiful way. Purpose is very loving. So being unique is a lifelong process. I think for those of us that are lucky enough to know our purpose, to name our purpose, and to live in purpose. And then we can have a lens for making sure that what we're doing, even if it's something we don't like doing, you can bring your purpose to it and it gets a whole lot better. And then that puts us in a state of becoming. So the purpose equation is a platform to open up our mind and our perspective to a way of being that answers that question, why am I here?
Okay,
So I'll stop screen sharing and we can chat.
terrific. Well, that
Wonderful.
was terrific. And
Thank you.
Yeah, bravo. We're all on mute.
so I'm going to open it up for questions. And I'm going into gallery view so I can see all of you. And does anyone have a question that they'd like to ask Anna? And we have Michael.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. I appreciate being able to take part today. Several of the purposes that you focused on during your presentation related to giving and kindness and altruistic activities. Can a purpose be selfish?
No. But let me give more context to that. And this is my theory of purpose. Okay, this is not based on research. What I have seen and what I innately feel is that a lot of things about us can be selfish, but I would say purpose can be self-serving. Because purpose is self-serving in that it is the source of internal motivation. It is the source that determines what things bring us joy, what makes us happy. So in that way, purpose is and should be and must be self-serving because it has to begin within. And then the way that most people think about purpose is it's an output. It's something that we do for others. And I will claim that that output is actually a side effect of living in purpose, starting with a state of being. Did I answer your question?
You did. I'm going to process it.
Okay, process it and come back.
Okay.
Anna, this is Josephine on the
Hi,
phone.
Josephine.
Hi, thank you so much for everything you shared. I just want to start by saying that it's the most comprehensive definition and examples of what a purpose is that I've heard in the last several months that I've been searching for mine and listening to others' purposes. I wanted to add to what was just said. I guess as another comment, that I see purpose too as a way to contribute to the world.
Absolutely.
And that is like what you were saying about it's not being selfish. It's how you're putting yourself out there and it's being received and you're adding to someone else or groups or others. And and in my question form, I suppose I wanted to ask if I was to describe my purpose as someone who enjoys sharing knowledge and helping others. Would you agree or disagree that that would be a starting point for a definition of my purpose?
I think that is a fantastic starting point. I would get more specific with your purpose equation. So a lot of us help other people. A lot of us love teaching. A lot of us love learning. Those are all, creating things. Those are helping others is something that purpose does as an output. Your specific purposes, what's your combination of strengths, innate powers, personality? How do all of those things combine for you to help others in a unique way? So the purpose equation gets even more specific in how you help others.
Okay, thank you. I've been working on that too.
Here, I'll give some examples. I have some written down here. So let's see. Here's some specific purpose equations. This is not the whole equation, but just to give you all some more context. Collaborative inventing. So it's not that this person loves to create new things or new inventions. It's specific to inventions, but it's collaborative inventing. It's a way of interacting and being with other people, relationship strengths to invent. Here's another purpose: being unconventional in a fiery, vibrant way. Here's another one: creating culture. All of those are helping people, but they're very specific. Another one is deep exploration of new things, focused on reaching an understanding. That was actually a part of a purpose equation for an architect who builds structures to help people live in happiness. Here's another one: creating human connections that work in unison to achieve outcomes. So yes, helping people, but very specifically how your superpowers and components combine to help people. So it also doesn't lead you to a specific job or a specific task or a specific hobby. You can see how one's purpose can come to the world in a plethora of ways.
I understand it's more general in nature, like you just said, and I guess I specifically related to creating human connection. That's good too. But go ahead. I don't want to take.
Margaret?
Yeah.
Anna, I've found this fascinating. So you've talked about purpose in the context of senior living, and certainly purpose is important whether you're in a senior living community or not, but I'm actually very interested in purpose in senior living communities. And there seems to be a contrast. It's a personal journey, and yet the question is, if you have a communal environment, are there ways to facilitate people's taking that journey? I was thinking about, and then where's the impetus to have for an organization when they're struggling for occupancy to be focusing on this, which is really all about thriving, but where's the financial feedback from it? And it was interesting when I was talking to someone, I saw that video on Facebook or wherever that showed a bunch of people in a senior living community that had big exercise balls, and they were tapping them to Uptown Funk. I don't know if anyone here saw that video. If you go to YouTube and say Uptown Funk assisted living community, and one person said like, oh, that's pathetic. Shoot me first. And I thought, because I went to pound classes, which is a type of exercise that uses drumsticks. The satisfaction from drumming by yourself is nothing compared, in my experience, to the satisfaction of drumming with a group. What you create together is a totally different experience, and that experience of being connected. And so the question becomes, I would love to see more purpose and connection beyond fun and games and word games, et cetera, in senior living. But I'm not sure where the impetus will be to further that. And that's a concern of mine, especially in a time where they are struggling for occupancy on all levels.
I'll second that question.
Yeah, so I think about this day and night for the last 25 years. And I don't have all of the answers, but I've been obsessed with trying to figure out at least one of them. So there's a couple of questions in there. I think that how we can create more purposeful living is to have less of a focus on an activity calendar and things to do, and more of an understanding of who people are and how their purpose comes out of them, or as I would say, their purpose outputs. So purpose language is are you a creator? Are you a maker? Are you a learner? Are you a teacher? Are you a creative? on and on and on. Very specific things like that. And then the residents, with support from the community as needed, can create ways of being and doing in purpose. Now, you might still end up having bingo on the calendar, but the approach is completely different when it's coming from a purpose-driven community, right? The approach is, well, who is going to be, whose purpose is to bring groups together? Whose purpose is to create really amazing, meaningful experiences for other people? Whose purpose is to organize, right? Does that make sense? So it's taking a step back and focusing on being and how people do things that are meaningful. And then the output of that could, again, be a million things, and it should definitely change and be based on the current residents who are in that community. The next point you made was about these collective experiences. They are essential to purpose, and I call these purpose pathways. So you have a sense of being in the middle, and then you have to fuel purpose, right? We all have purpose inside of us, but I'll ask you, how hot and bright is your purpose fire burning? Other people would call this, I need to recharge. Collective experiences recharge our purpose. Collective musical experiences in particular, I'm fascinated with in terms of like going to concerts, everyone being on that same vibration and wavelength. We can tap into this universal collective energy and it fuels all of us. That's why socialization is so important for human beings, because we fuel each other's purpose. And that way, purpose is also not a selfish thing. We need other people to fuel it. And then depending on our purpose and our personality and our unique purpose stack, how we do that varies. And then in terms of, so purpose pathways, also things like listening to music. Think about things for each of you on this call. What do you do that is joyous? And here's how I define joy. One, when you're in a state of joy, you lose track of time. You say, oh, I thought only 10 minutes passed since I've been dancing around my house. But oh my goodness, it's 45 minutes later. The other thing is you lose sense of self, because in a very spiritual way, living in purpose actually gets us beyond a sense of self. It's like when I say I'm living in purpose, I'm here risking making a fool out of myself with my theories, because it's not about, am I going to embarrass myself today? It's about, how can I share what I've learned to help someone else have a better day? It's not about me anymore. So purpose in that way does bring us beyond the self to this more collective energy. And that's why I think, especially after COVID and with everything that's going on in the world right now, purpose is a path to healing. And if we could get more people living in purpose, we would all have a much better quality of life. We've had better relationships, and maybe humanity would make some better collective decisions. As far as senior living is concerned, it used to be before COVID that we had to talk about engagement and purpose as, well, if residents are healthier, they'll live there longer and your length of stay will increase. So you'll have to spend less on sales and marketing because your turnover will be lower. That was the old way of talking. One of the silver linings of this pandemic is, with residents being more isolated than ever, all of a sudden the importance of engagement has become tantamount. And I think how a community changes its marketing. I mean, a lot of people in this world who don't know a lot about senior living are not too thrilled about that being part of their future as the concept is marketed right now. If it could be a place of becoming and living in purpose and bringing joy to others and interacting with the community, that's a whole different story. There's still going to be that element of care, and even more and more a medical model. Even more and more the levels of living are disappearing, and it's more about bringing services into a location. But beyond that, engagement, I think, is the new competitive edge. And companies are investing in it. We're seeing that at Connected Living, finally investing in technology to connect people and to amplify engagement and to bring new ways of socializing and living within a community and beyond the walls of that community. So again, another long-winded answer, but I hope I answered your question.
Okay, we have a couple more times. We have Barbara Shaman and then Carol Fleischman.
And I just want to hug you, jump up and down and kiss you. I think that was probably one of the most moving, insightful, perceptive, sensitive approaches to dealing with this topic. And I wanted to focus on intergenerational collaboration to create purpose, because you're looking at institutional living, and I'd like to take that outside of the institution and then bring it back into the institution. I think that I live in different worlds. I sometimes spend time in the winter in Florida, and in that environment, I see people who are running from pickleball to tennis to bingo to, you name all of the things. And I feel like I don't have my own tribe there, because what I perceive as purpose in my life is not running from A to B to C, although I might be running on Zoom calls and doing that in a similar fashion. Mm-hmm. But I find that it's important to surround yourself with kindred spirits who understand it, support you, and can help you keep finding your purpose. And so for me, it's been a hard year. I've lost a bunch of friends to COVID and death.
So sorry.
And you can't replace lifelong relationships. No. But on the other hand, I've made a lot of younger friends, and seeing how they think and feeling their energy and collaborating with them has really filled my soul in a very special kind of way. So I think this challenge of sustaining purpose is also about who do you surround yourself with in your different communities, and having an appreciation for the value that is brought into your own life based on who's there supporting you. And I have to just do a shout out for Vicki and Joyce in terms of what they're doing to create community for us and to bring like-minded people together on a weekly basis. But it's a challenge whether you're in an institutional setting or you're aging, and you have to keep looking for who will fill my soul so I can really bring out my purpose. And I want to know, what are you doing in terms of intergenerational work within a senior living community?
So I'll give you the dual answer. At Connected Living, we're leveraging technology to help communities support intergenerational virtual or remote relationships. And, that's just something that must be done. It's amazing for the youth, and studies show that it helps combat depression and loneliness in older adults. So it's mutually beneficial relationships that I wish we could see more and more of it. And so at Connected Living, what I'm doing is working with communities and trying to help them create and bridge these intergenerational connections. As far as the purpose equation, I created the purpose equation out of my grief for seeing older adults who were talking about what they used to do when they were still here and had so much to give. But I actually kind of found out by mistake that the purpose equation is universal and it doesn't matter how old you are. We all have a purpose. And I was lucky enough to give a purpose workshop for some high school students a couple weeks ago, and then also some college students in an architecture class. And I found that purpose and the need for purpose and the wanting to answer that question, why, or coming up upon, milestones in life where you wonder, well, what do I do next? Or am I doing the right thing? Or is this what I'm meant to do? That is an ageless experience. And my dream would be to bring youth who have a purpose equation together with older adults who have a purpose equation and make those intergenerational connections on that spiritual level. I know that it would be incredible.
Meet Colby Farrell. He's on the call.
He's got my email address. I'm going to chase him down afterwards.
I'm starting to write an email with a bunch of questions, so don't worry.
Okay, good.
Carol Fleischman, you had a question.
No, I just had a comment.
Did it go away?
Life coach for 25 years as certified by Success Unlimited Network. The very first thing that we learn and that we do with clients is we have a process where they define purpose in life is to facilitate the revitalization of meaningful growth and unity. And every day I test myself if I've done that to some degree that day. And with birthday number 86 coming up, it's still alive well, and I still do it with my clients, and believe that it might take different forms.
Carol, you need to speak into your microphone a little more.
Really?
Yeah?
You could.
Because everybody's turning up their volume.
Yeah.
I was sitting back relaxing.
That's good.
What didn't you hear? Shall I repeat it? I know we're past our time.
Summarize it.
I was trained 25 years ago to be a life coach. The first thing we do is to work with people to define their purpose in life. Mine is to facilitate the revitalization of meaningful growth and unity. And that's what has kept me alive since then. And it's still right on target. And it's something to believe in. You really was very exciting for you to reinforce the importance of it with your new technique.
It's great. And we should round out with a comment or question from Thelma Reese.
First of all, this was absolutely wonderful, Anna, and I thank you. It's just marvelous. I just want to say that when you get to be 87, one of the advantages, if you still have all your marbles, is to find out what was your purpose, even if you didn't recognize it when you were young.
Yes.
If you had the time to really reflect,
Yes.
you learn what it has been and maybe still is.
Thelma, thank you for saying that, because I think this is such a great way to end. You know, all of us have a purpose, and it's always there. It's always with you. It's within you. It's not outside of you. I think part of our journey in this life is to figure out a way to live in that purpose. And Thelma, tell me if this is true. Once you feel your purpose and fully integrate it and accept it, it is a joyous thing.
Right.
Yes.
All righty. I think we'll bring that to a close. And Anna, applause to you for doing such an incredible job, being nervous about it, but your confidence and your inner strength just emerged beautifully throughout. And I'm so glad to have had you today. And I know that you enlightened a lot of people. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vicki. And thank you all for giving a whole hour of your time for purpose.